Hello, welcome to the Tennessee Informer. I'm your host, Dave Vance. Our guest tonight is Senator Frank Niceley. We'll be discussing a variety of topics, including gold and silver as currency, the construction of a bullion depository, eminent domain, and mRNA vaccines found in our beef supply, among other issues. It'll be an insightful evening, so you don't want to go anywhere. First, if you have an announcement from a conservative organization that you'd like to have announced during the program, please send the information to tninformer.tv@gmail.com the Friday before the show. Before we get to our guests, let's have a look again at our state constitution and U.S. Constitution. It's important to keep these principles in your mind and never forget them. You have to know your rights to defend them. If you're not instructing your state legislators on important issues, they are still being instructed by feckless state leaders, the Chamber of Commerce, numerous lobbyists, and other well-heeled scum that roam the halls of the Capitol. Section 2 from our Declaration of Rights, that government being instituted for the common benefit, the doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. Article 11, Miscellaneous Provisions, Section 16. The Declaration of Rights hereto prefixed is declared to be part of the Constitution of the state and shall never be violated on any pretense whatever. And to guard against transgression of the high powers we have delegated, we declare that everything in the Bill of Rights contained is accepted out of the general powers of the government and shall forever remain inviolate. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved for the states respectively or to the people. And the 9th Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. I'd like to go over some updates on recent legislation. Senate Bill 2775 was in the State and Local Government Committee today. And we had a good presentation by Jeffrey Cobble. He's an attorney, and he's also an expert on the Constitution. And this was the nullification bill that we've talked about for several months now. And although I do think he made a good impression on several of the senators, ultimately the bill ended up being sent to summer study. Now, that doesn't mean it's dead, although it does sometimes mean that. I think in this case, Senator Bowling fully intends to make sure we have a summer study, and I think there were at least a couple, if not more, on that committee that would like to hear more about it. So the fight's not over. We didn't win it today. We knew the odds were long, but I do want to thank everybody that made it up there today. I want to thank everybody that wrote emails, made phone calls. They're listening. It's going to take some while. This is a pretty steep curve as far as educating people on nullification. A lot of people hear it. They don't understand it. They think it means secession. They think it means another civil war. No, it's just really how you uphold the Constitution from the state perspective. So we'll let you know more on that as we find out about it. We're looking at probably a May or June date is what was discussed today for trying to schedule that special session. Another bill that I want to bring you up on is House Bill 0694. That was by Representative Monty Fritz. It was in the Public Service Committee today, subcommittee, and that was the one that dealt with the issue of non-essential occupations during the emergencies. So basically, this bill would mean that the next time we have an emergency or a scamdemic, that the governor nor anybody in the state can declare somebody's occupation, if it's a legal occupation, that they will not be able to declare it non-essential. So that's good to see that bill get through. I know the administration was fighting hard against that from everything I'm hearing. I can't adequately cover all the pending legislation, good or bad, in an hour or even 2 hours. Just understand we're being attacked on every front. Recommend the following links for anything having to do with SB 2775. That's the nullification bill. Like I say, that's going to be in summer study, but TNCSS, the organization that we created for this issue, we're not going away. We're just going to try to do even more education. So that website is still pertinent, still good. We need you to sign up and stay informed and do everything you can to educate your family, your friends, and your legislators. This is an election year. It's a perfect time when people come to your town and they're campaigning to be a state rep or a state senator. Ask them where they stand on nullification. And if they don't know what nullification is, they need to figure it out pretty quick. For all Second Amendment related bills, I recommend the TennesseeFirearms.com. For legislation covering a variety of topics, I recommend Tennessee Eagle Forum or Tennessee Stands. Our guest tonight is Senator Frank Niceley. He's married, 4 children. He's a farmer, a Methodist, and he has a BS from the University of Tennessee, 1969, in soil science, and he's the 8th District Senator. He lives in Strawberry Plains. Thank you for being with us tonight, Senator.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be here.
We're glad to have you. We're going to get right into the bills, and they will be up on the screen so everybody can see them. And you have several good bills, and they're all pertinent. So the first one that pops up is SB 2727. This has to do with public funds and financing. Authorizes the treasurer, subject to appropriation, to use funds from the reserve for revenue fluctuation account to purchase precious metals, bullion, and specie, and place the bullion and specie, and I'm not saying that right, in a restricted account. Authorizes the treasurer to store the physical bullion with an entity designated by the treasurer with the approval of the comptroller. So what is all of that about? What's the goal there?
Well, the goal is to not put all the eggs in one basket. You know, there's a lot of chatter going around about the Great Reset, the Great Takings, and going direct, and all these things. And you know, financial advisors all my life have said you need 5-10% of your portfolio in precious metals. The state is, you know, we're a well-managed state. We have probably maybe 10%, 9 or 10% of our investments in real estate. The rest is pretty much half in stocks and half in bonds. So we're a well-managed state. There's no doubt about that. We are the lowest tax state in the nation. Our retirement fund is one of the few states that's fully paid up. But having said all that, a lot of people think we need some of our reserves in silver and gold. Nations all around the world have a reserve of silver and gold. And recently there's been a lot of people a lot of these different countries adding to their gold and silver supply. So we got this depository, we went down and visited the Texas depository. Texas has their own state depository. It's a Class 3 vault. The treasurer went down and looked at it, and it's kind of impressive. And so what we would like to do is put about maybe somewhere between 1 and 3% in the initial investment in gold and silver, and store it in the Texas depository until we're able to get our own depository. And once we get a few millions of dollars worth of silver and gold in Texas, then the will of the legislature, I'm pretty sure, will be we need to get that back home.
Right.
So that would give us an argument to get it back home and put it in our own depository. We'll try to build our own depository next year. But so there's lots of things you can do with this. There's eventually, and this bill would authorize this to happen. There's an entity called a glint card. I don't know if you've ever heard of a glint card. Yeah. It's on the master charge framework. But really, if you put $1,000, in glint card, they'd buy immediately. They'd buy you $1,000 worth of gold, and they would keep it in the depository, and you would have a debit card. And if you bought a hamburger, then you would you make that transaction. The hamburger joint would not know that thing's a regular credit card, but immediately a hamburger's worth of gold would be transferred out of your account, switched into money to pay for your hamburger. And the state would get 20% of the transaction fee.
Wow. So
that's a way we can start making it. And we invited the guy, Jason, who started the glint card. He came over. We had dinner with him. We had lunch with him. We talked about all this, and we're not there yet, but we're getting close. We could set this thing up to where it would be totally inside Tennessee, and then if the Federal Reserve or the World Bank tried to shut down our routes where we pay everything, we would be protected from these shutdowns. We'd have a backup system on maybe just a checking account. You could have a card and a checking account. So if electronics went down, you'd still be able. And then if you wanted your gold, say you had $900 worth of gold left, you could go to the depository in person and get your gold. It would be totally backed. Every dollar that you had would be backed with gold. You know, the banks used to have fractional reserve banking where they'd have a fraction of the gold. It makes $100 and maybe a few dollars worth of gold. But in this system, every dollar would be backed with gold.
Wow.
And our silver, you know, both precious metals. And that we can let our state employees, we can offer them their 401ks. We can say we put part of it in the gold, where you could just, you know, it's hard to go buy gold. You go to a coin shop, and you buy a half ounce or an ounce, and you know, you pay a big premium, and you just got to store it and everything. This would be so handy, and this would fight against the great taking, whatever that's going to be. I don't know what it is, but everybody's talking about it. We don't want a 1929 event.
Right.
In 1929, the people who had gold and didn't turn it in 33, they took up all the gold.
Yep.
But the rich people and the northeastern elite, they transferred their gold to Europe, and so they didn't have to put theirs in. Then when Roosevelt devalued it and made the gold worth, devalued the dollar and made the gold worth $35 instead of $20, then they brought their gold back, and all of a sudden they just practically doubled their money. There's a good thing on the internet called "All Wars Are Bankers' Wars." Watch it twice. You need to watch that, and it's got some really interesting history. I knew 90% of it, but the 10% I didn't know was really interesting.
Was that Smedley Butler?
By Michael Rivero.
Okay. I just thought when you talked about war being a racket, I thought they may have had some information on there by Smedley Butler. I know that he talked about that way back in the 20s.
General Butler in there.
Okay.
It does. It talks about him, and I didn't know much about General Butler, but he when he got out of the military, he realized that he had been used by the big boys.
So how long do you think it would take us to build a depository?
Well, it would take a little while. It would have to get that next year. This government moves slow. The founding fathers wanted us to move slow. They didn't want us to come down here with a bunch of knee-jerk reactions and mess everything up. And I don't have this bill completely out of committee yet, but Senator McNally has signed on with it. And that's usually a pretty good sign that the skids have been greased a little bit. It's probably going to pass.
Okay. So the next one we're going to look at.
I think that will be the first state to actually start building a reserve of precious metals. Now, there's about 20 other states that are wanting to do this. A lot of them have contacted me to want to know what we're doing in Tennessee. And if 13 of those states were to do that, we would be the third largest economy in the world.
Wow.
The combined national product of those 13 states, we would be the third largest economy in the world. And if we had a reserve of gold and silver and the third largest economy, we would be a contender in the big scheme of things.
So what does Texas have? You said you visited them to check out their depository.
Well, they built the deposits. The Texas Teachers Retirement Fund had almost $1 billion of gold, and they were storing it in New York. And they built the depository thinking that they would bring the gold back and put it in Texas, in the depository. And then some kind of internal Texas jealousy or something happened, and the retirement fund sold their gold for about $800. And they've been better off putting depositories. Well, now my grandson has told me that I think gold just hit an all-time high. So they would have been better off to have kept the gold, put it in a depository. And I don't really know the exact reason why they didn't do it, but probably petty politics. But since they didn't do that, we're probably going to be the first state to do it. And hopefully after we do it, there'll be some other states come along. Well, there's groups working on it, working with all these states, trying to get us all on the same page. And hopefully we can put it.
Well, I'm sure Tennessee doesn't have any petty politicians in our House or Senate. I'm glad we're not in Texas.
Well, the, the House of Representatives, the Senate, we represent everybody in Tennessee.
Right.
And everybody in Tennessee is not perfect. So those imperfect people are represented in the legislature.
I got you. The next bill, I guess, is just what's going to authorize 2735 allows the treasurer to enter into an agreement with an entity to carry out certain activities in order to serve as a facility to securely produce and store, process, and ship bullion products to the state's depository. Okay, so that's what you were talking about, and you said that's going to take a little while, probably a few years at least, after you get the bill passed.
It'll take a while to build the depository, but there's bank vaults around we can store it in, and some of these big banks have offered to store or go for free, but they're not as secure as the one in Texas. Now, he may not send it to Texas. He may decide to find a secure place here to keep it. So we've given him some options. The treasurer, he's done a great job running our retirement. He's cautious, and you want your treasurer to be cautious. We don't have no complaints for the treasurer. He does just exactly what he should do, and that's make sure we don't make a mistake.
Right.
But we got, like I say, we've got close to $70 billion in our retirement system. Illinois is $100 billion in the hole. So in Illinois, there's for state retirees that one of these days probably won't be getting a check. So Tennessee's in really good shape. And even when the Democrats ran it, they did a good job. When the Republicans took over, we didn't know a lot about it. We were in pretty good shape. Of course, they would raise taxes every year, and when the Republicans took over, we started cutting taxes.
Right.
We took over 12 years ago, and we abolished the inheritance tax, we abolished the gift tax, we abolished the Hall's income tax, we abolished the professional tax, and I'm not talking about cutting them now. I'm talking about abolishing them.
Yeah.
Just are no more. And it bothers me that some of these people move into the state and they think we're a bunch of rhinos, and they'll find a little old obscure bill we didn't do a good job on, and they don't have any idea what you go through down here trying to do anything. And they overlook the fact that we have abolished 4 major taxes, and we've cut, don't tell how many different taxes. We've passed between 40 and 50 gun bills. We've amended the state constitution to outlaw an income tax. I've passed a bill to amend the Constitution to outlaw the state property tax. See, most people don't realize it, but we have a state property. Tennessee ran on a state property tax until 1949. In 1949, the deal was if they could have a sales tax, they would do away with the state property tax. But they didn't do away with it. They just rolled it back to zero. So it's still on the books at zero. So if we got to find, it'd be real easy to knock the dust off this state property tax and bring it back out. Well, we don't want that. So we passed the bill this year, a resolution. We'll have to pass again next year with 2/3, and then we'll come to the governor's ballot, and we will amend the Constitution to make it unconstitutional to ever have a state property tax.
Good.
So, and like I say, we've already done that to the income tax. We've amended the Constitution where it's unconstitutional to have a state income tax. So we've done a lot of things in the last 10 years and we don't get a lot of credit for it a lot of times. The liberal media, they don't ever talk about the conservative things we do. Now, if we slip up, and like these boys tried to outlaw cold beer the other day, and we got a lot of bad press on that. I mean, nobody knew that. We all knew, but the guy that did that, he had been hit head on. It was about killed him. I mean, he's crippled up. He's probably never be the same, and he blamed it on cold beer. Of course, hot beer would have done the same thing. And my old father-in-law, he was a World War II veteran. He's dead now, and he said the two kinds of beer he liked was hot and cold. So, but we get a lot of bad press over some of these things that never going anywhere. but a lot of people jump on them and cling to them and try to blow them out of proportion. But all in all, it's kind of amazing what we've been able to do.
So Senate Bill 2614, Public Funds and Financings, introduced, specifies that gold, silver, platinum, and palladium are included in the definition of precious metals as the term relates to the treasurer's purchase of sale of precious metal, bullion, or specie.
Well, we put the legal tender in the other bill. We can incorporate all those in there.
Okay.
And we left platinum and palladium out. See, the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10 says that only gold and silver coins could be. The states can only have gold and silver coins as legal tender.
Okay.
So we limited it back to gold and silver, and we kind of combined it all into this other bill.
Okay. So let me ask this, because a lot of these they're all related. So what kind, you feel pretty confident you're going to get something through this year and related to the gold and silver and the bullion?
You know, God, it's scary, but and anything can go wrong down here at any minute. But right now, it's looking pretty good. The Speaker of the Senate signed on those two major bills with me. The one on the where we start buying the bullion, and then the one on the other bill that we hadn't talked about, where we'll start making silver coins.
Okay. Now that was in summer study in last summer. SB 311, is that the one?
It never did really have the summer study. We talked about it, but this year we got it. We got the bill up, and the Speaker signed on with me, and we would see. And that's one of the problems with gold and silver with investors. They say, well, it doesn't pay a dividend. But if we start making silver coins, silver rounds, and other states are making a few. Texas makes one. I've got one here by Destro from Texas. We can probably have those with our own mint, the Tennessee Mint. We can make that coin for about 50 cents over spot. Well, we can easily sell that for $2 or $3 over spot.
Right.
We can put historical figures on it. We can put the Tennessee seal on one side. We could put country music greats, country music legends. It'd be a 1 ounce, 1 troy ounce, 999 pure silver. And you know, an American Eagle right now, 1 troy ounce, it'd be hard to buy one less than $35. So if we can make these Tennessee coins, Tennessee's got a good reputation. Everybody likes Tennessee. Tennessee's brand is hot right now. It's on fire. We could probably sell these things all day long for a couple, $3 over spot. Well, that's a pretty good return on your investment if you can do that in 2 or 3 months. And you pay 10%, you know, that's 30% figured out a year. And then we can put that profit back into our reserve. And we start making a return on our silver and gold. You don't make a return if you just buy it and stack it up in your vault.
Right.
But if you're actually making them, selling them, and plowing that back, and you're making, the more you make, the more you sell. I mean, there's probably there's a place out in Utah called the Sunshine Mint, and I think they're making about 1 million rounds a week.
Wow.
And they're about 2 years behind. People all over the country they realize something's coming. They can, you know, they say, the Bible says an old war horse can smell a battle from afar. And there's a lot of old war horses around like me that can smell a battle coming. There's something coming.
Yep. And
we need to get ahead of it. Gold and silver never goes to zero.
Right.
I've had stocks go to zero, but you'll never have gold and silver go to zero.
Right.
So, you know, I think we're on the right track.
And
we're in such a state that just a small amount, and we're not going to lose it because it never goes to zero. It's
right.
I mean, the risk is just basically no risk.
Yeah. And, you know, I think probably everybody should have some of something, whether it's silver, gold, whatever they can afford, just in case the worst happens.
Yeah, I have silver, gold, have a little cash laid back.
Yep.
You know, you have a sunspot like you did in 1859, and all your computers go out, and you go to the ATM machine, and nothing works.
Yep.
And you go to gas company. You put your card, it doesn't work.
Yep.
I don't have a little cash.
Yep.
You know, of course, there's a movement worldwide to go cashless. I mean, China and India, and I think even the Bahamas, they're on this digital currency now, which nobody likes. We passed a bill today out of committee to outlaw digital currency, CBDC in Tennessee.
Good.
Like DeSantis did down in Florida. So, you know, there's a lot of senators and representatives that kind of know what's going on.
Now that was, as a matter of fact, that was the next bill I wanted to talk about. That was SB 1764, Uniform Commercial Code, defines the term central bank digital currency and excludes the term from the definition of money for the purpose of the Uniform Commercial Code. That's the bill that you passed today?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, passed in committee.
Right.
Okay.
And in the Senate, if it gets out of committee, it's done.
It's a done deal. Okay.
Now there's occasionally, you know, something will go wrong on the Senate floor, and we'll get into a big argument. We'll step there an hour or two, and it may kill a bill. But 9 times out of 10, if it comes out of committee, it's going to go.
Can you explain the Uniform Commercial Code a little bit? I see that referenced in several bills.
I can't. Can you?
No, that's why I'm asking.
I can't explain it.
Okay.
And we had a bill down there. It was 45 pages long and dealing with universal commercial code. States have to adopt that stuff, you know.
Right.
And every page probably did something. The sponsor couldn't tell you anything that it did, really. And that's where we get in trouble in these long bills, and nobody knows for sure what they do.
Yep.
But, yeah, the UCC, everybody talks about it. Nobody really knows. Everybody's a little bit afraid of it. We just don't want to change it. I mean,
right.
They told me when I first came out here a long time ago, I said, if they can't explain a bill, vote no.
Right. Now, wasn't there another Senate bill under the Uniform Commercial Code that was going to include CBD or not?
There was one last year. We didn't pass it.
Okay. I thought there was another one this year, but I guess not. Okay.
Yeah, I think here. We actually had 2 bills today that dealt with CBDC. More and more people, you know, a year ago, nobody knew about CBDC. People are learning now about the CBDC.
Right.
You know, something we probably ought to talk about, these natural asset companies. Are you familiar with natural asset companies?
Yes, we had a speaker on a few weeks ago about the natural. And matter of fact, they were trying. That was the time when they were trying to have them listed on the SEC. And you know, matter of fact, with some of the bills going through the legislature right now having to do with easements, that was one of our first concerns, with that these easements were actually going to be facilitating these NACs.
They were. There's no doubt about it. It's one of Biden's executive orders,
yep.
30 by 30.
Yep.
He wanted to hold 30% of the land by 2030, and then 50% by 2050, and they're going to trade these things. And you know, we killed back the attempt by the private sector to create NACs. Now that the federal government's come back and they're trying to create them,
yep.
and they're wanting to. They'll actually be trading the management rights to our national parks, national forests, Bureau of Land Management land, all this government land, and farms who have sold their conservation easements.
Yep.
And if you look what's going on in Europe now, with the farmers all protesting, they're a few years ahead of us down the road toward this.
Yep.
One globalist country. Now they're protesting. They see what it's doing. They've told them they can't raise cattle, they can't milk the cows, they can't use but 40 units of nitrogen per acre on their crops, and that's where we're headed.
Yep.
But the Senate Ag Committee, they had some people in early and explained these. There's a girl, Courtney Turner.
Yep. I had her on my show about a month ago, or a little bit longer than that.
Courtney came in and explained these things to our committee early on in the first of the session.
Yep.
And we listened to her, and then there's a group out of Texas called American Stewards of Liberty.
Yep. Another good group, another very good group. Yep.
and they explained what was going on. And actually, when I was in the House, I was chairman of the Ag Committee in the House, and we had a guy come in called Henry Lamb. Henry Lamb. He's dead.
Yep.
Did you ever hear him?
Yeah, he lived in Tennessee. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He came into committee, I guess, 13 or 14 years ago, and he told us at the time, he explained what they were doing. He explained just exactly what's taking place right now.
Yep.
He understood this United Nations stuff better than anybody. And he said the only thing worse than the government coming in and confiscating your farm and taking it is for you to sign a conservation easement. And he knew their plan. The amazing thing about these globalists is that they're so patient. 10 years means nothing to them. They'll just take, if they hit a roadblock, they'll just back up and take their time, and they'll let the generation change, and they'll come back again and keep going. And they're determined to have a one world government. And a lot of people don't realize it. Like I said earlier, we're fighting the globalists. That's where this stuff's coming from. It's coming from the globalists.
Well, and the globalists are Marxist. That's part of it.
And we've had a lot of politicians in Washington that were globalist.
Yep.
The Bushes were openly globalist. David Rockefeller, he'd openly talk about one world government. Paul Ryan, the Chinese they laugh about how cheap it is to buy a congressman.
Wow. That's scary.
It's scary. It really is. But I tell people, I've said a long time, if America's saved, the states are going to have to do it.
Absolutely.
It's not going to happen out of Washington. Washington is paralyzed. They can't. I don't even know why you go up there. You can't do anything.
When I hear somebody's thinking about running for office, and they're somebody who I think is good and would try to do the right thing, I don't even want them to go to D.C. is a waste. D.C. will never fix D.C. The only way we fix D.C. is with the states. We need to encourage the best potential candidates to stay here in the state and not waste them in D.C.
Well, the founding fathers gave us the power. I talked about the U.S. Senate thing. I guess that's before we were on there, wasn't it? When I talked about letting the legislature nominate U.S. senators. Was that
right
before we were on?
Yeah, it was before we were on air. Yeah.
Well, I'll explain that a little bit. We could get control of the U.S. Senate by we could change the law to where Tennessee didn't have a primary for the U.S. senators, but where we had a caucus, and let the legislature be the caucus, and the legislature pick a good man or a woman to be the nominee. The Democrats could pick their person, the Republicans pick their person, and then they'd run against each other in November. That's constitutional, clearly constitutional, but we'd gain back about 90% of what we lost, because if the U.S. senator made the state legislature mad, we wouldn't nominate them again.
Right.
So they would listen to us then. And then how do you get control of the Congress? Well, you call your congressmen in, and you remind them that the Supreme Court has said that we can redistrict those congressmen every 2 years. We have to redistrict them every 10 years, but we can redistrict them every 2 years.
I didn't know that. Good.
Give them a list of what all we want them to do, and then we show them a map of their district if they don't do what we want to do. And we put all 9 congressmen in 3 districts, and then we let some state senators or state representatives run for Congress. When they see that map, they're going to start wanting to do what we want them to do.
Right.
So the founding fathers gave us the power. We just don't have the backbone every day to use it.
Right.
It's not holding this back; it's the backbone.
Yeah. Well, I think the 16th Amendment is a big problem too, and with that in mind, yeah, we have a good credit rating, we have low debt, and our pensions are funded. But we have a lot of dependency on the federal government. I think something like 38% of our budget every year comes from, and I know it's been higher than that at some point, but this last budget or proposed budget is 38%. That's a huge chunk. That's a lot of dependence on the federal government. And
think about it. Just think about this. Yeah. This is what I tell people. Sure, the states get we get part of our money from the feds.
Right.
But the feds get 100% of their money from us.
Right. And then they bribe us with our own money.
They get all their money from us. But we quit sending them money. You know, we could have a collection point here in Nashville. Let everybody send their income taxes to Nashville, and then we would decide how much of that we wanted to send on to Washington. You know, we could, if they don't do right, we just send them half. Keep that. Like I say, Washington gets all of their money from the states.
So just, I mean, I'm serious here. I'd love to see that. So how could we do that in Tennessee now?
I think we could. I mean, somebody'd have to stop and figure out the details, but I don't see why you couldn't do that. That
would be great. We definitely need to do that. Let's get into eminent domain a little bit. Kind of touched on that with the NACs and the easements, but SB 1983 introduced specifies that a condemner bears the burden of proving by a preponderance of the evidence certain facts regarding the condemnation. Creates a right for property owners whose property is being condemned to have a court determine whether the taking is necessary to accomplish for the public good.
Yeah, that was brought to me by the county commission up in my home county. And we passed our committees today.
Oh, good.
And we passed both of those eminent domain bills. We took parks out of the public use. 3 years ago, we passed a bill that said the counties can't condemn your property for an industrial park.
Right.
Now, they buy it. If they want a willing seller, willing buyer, they buy it all day long. But they can't condemn. We took that industrial park out of public use.
Okay.
And one of these bills today took recreational parks out.
Yeah. That was.
And then the other bill said that they have to, if I can remember right, they have to prove that they've got a plan on what they're going to do with it. They can't just take your land and hold it for 20 years. They got to have a plan, a timetable. They've got to prove that they got the financing available to do what they want to do. And then they have to prove that there's nothing else in the vicinity that can be used instead of taking your land. And there's one other thing, I can't remember what the other is off the top of my head, but yeah, it's a good eminent domain bill. Eminent domain is, we got to have it for roads, airports, and a few things like that. But it's easy sometimes for these local governments to abuse it.
Yeah.
So we're tightening it up to where they can't.
And those got out of committee today, then.
Yeah.
Well, good. You have any idea how they're doing in the House, the companion bills?
I think they're doing all right.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah, I think they're going to go. Nobody wants their land taken.
Right.
Because they pay you appraised value, which is never what you think it's worth. And never what you could get out of it if you had a year or two to market it.
Yep.
I had a bill time it wasn't a bill, it was an amendment to a bill that said in an eminent domain they had to pay you 3 times the appraised value. And there's 3 things make real estate worth something. And the old saying of it's location, location, and location. So if the location of that land that they want to take is so valuable to the whole general public, then let the general public chip in a few pennies each and pay you 3 times. That gives you enough money to move to a new location and start your business over and get over the hump and get your business going to where you can make it.
Yep.
I've seen restaurants move across the street and fail. I mean, it's when you move your business, there's no guarantee that you're going to keep your customers.
Yep.
So I always thought, well, if it's that important that they have to have it for the good of the whole county, let the whole county chip in, pay you 3 times what it's appraised at, and you'd think you'd won the lottery, and you'd be great, you'd be happy. That's good. And most people, if they could get 3 times what their land's appraised for, would be happy.
Yeah, that's a win-win.
But they don't want to take appraised value.
Right.
And try to restart somewhere else.
We'll move to livestock. Senate Bill 2543 exempts livestock and poultry producers who do not vaccinate their animals from orders of the Commissioner of Agriculture or state veterinarian that require vaccines for animals. What's that all about? How did that come about?
Well, there's a lot of young mothers out here that want good food for the children. They don't want the cattle to be fed GMO corn. They don't want them to be fed soybeans because of the estrogen, too much estrogen for the little boys. They don't want the animals to be vaccinated. They don't want the pastures to be sprayed with herbicides. They're real particular. And some of these people are on the far right, and some of them are on the far left, some of them are in the middle. But what's happened, they've realized that good food is cheaper than doctor bills. And so there's people out here who are raising cattle, and they don't vaccinate them. They advertise it's not vaccinated.
Right.
More and more of these vaccines, now the old traditional vaccines were one thing, but the CDC had to change the definition of a vaccine to make the mRNA vaccines a vaccine. They're not vaccines, they're gene therapy.
Yep.
During COVID, after everybody that got the vaccine started getting COVID, the CDC came back out and said, hey, these do not keep you from getting COVID. This just keeps you from dying, maybe, or keep you from being sick.
Maybe.
Well, in the beginning, they were going to keep you from getting it. A vaccine should keep you from getting it.
Right.
These mRNA vaccines are so cheap for Big Pharma to manufacture. Of course, they'll sell them for the same price as the traditional vaccines, but they're so cheap to make that it's just a matter of time until there will be no live virus or kill virus vaccines, the old traditional vaccines. They will all be gene therapy. And gene therapy is proven through COVID not to work. But they call them vaccines. You know, they had to change the definition of a pandemic so that COVID would be a pandemic. They had to change the definition of vaccine so these mRNA gene therapy would be considered a vaccine. There's a whole lot of shenanigans going on. I never did get the vaccine. None of my kids got the vaccine. We don't vaccinate our cattle. If there's something that we think we do, we would. There's like if you're on a farm and you got wet land and you got a history of having blackleg in your cattle, that blackleg lives in the soil, then you need to vaccinate. But there's a lot of things that you don't need to vaccinate. Our land grant universities and our Department of Agriculture and stuff, they've just become cheerleaders and salesmen for Big Pharma, and it recommended more and more vaccines, just like on our children. Right. My grandchildren weren't vaccinated. My daughters didn't think that they didn't want to do it, so they did. When I was young, they recommended about 5 vaccines. Yep. You know how many they recommend now of a fully vaccinated baby right now?
70 or 80, something crazy.
It is between 70 and 80. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Oh.
I mean, that injections into a little baby's blood system. I mean, there's so much money for Big Pharma that they've just gone overboard. They pushed the envelope too far. Now everybody's resisting, and they say, well, maybe we don't need any. The Amish don't vaccinate their children. And we got Amish in Pennsylvania, to Florida, to Montana, to Belize.
Yep.
And they don't vaccinate, and they don't have autism, they don't have ADHD, they don't have, colitis, irritable bowel, and all these things that plague our kids, and their kids aren't roly-poly fat. I mean, it just it makes you wonder who's doing the right thing here.
Yeah. Who's smarter? They're definitely smarter in that regard.
Well, they're smart and wise. They're smart and wise don't always track along the same way.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have people that aren't too smart, but are really wise.
Yeah, true. The next one is SB 2603, Food and Food Products, is introduced, clarifies that a cell-cultured protein, whatever that is, offered for sale, sold, or distributed in this state and labeled or advertised as meat, a meat food product, poultry, or a poultry food product, is misbranded under the Tennessee Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, specifies that under the Tennessee Meat and Poultry Inspection Act, the definitions of meat food product, poultry, or poultry food product do not include a cell-cultured protein. What in the world is a cell-cultured protein?
Well, some people call it tumor meat. It's fast-growing cells. Most people don't realize that this beef, this cell-cultured beef, they have to feed these beef Petri meats. They have to feed it fetal blood serum, bovine fetal blood serum. Now, what is that? That's blood from unborn calves. Where do they get that? Well, when they kill an old cow for hamburger, she's got a calf in her. They jerk that calf off the side, pull that blood out, and sell that blood. They have to feed those cells with that blood. Now, they advertise it as no-kill meat, you know, and blah, blah, blah. It's humane, good for the environment. It actually causes more harm to the environment than the cows. And cows will actually save the planet if we had enough cattle. The cattle are not what's destroying. Al Gore's crazy. This is not destroying the planet. Cows help your pasture. You take some old rundown land, and if you rotate your cattle around, leave that grass time to rest and come back. It's just like the roving herds of buffalo out in the West. There's 60 million head of buffalo in the West when this country was discovered. And they kept moving like a big lawnmower. And they'd tear up the ground with all the hooves. And they'd put all that manure and urine on there as fertilize. And there was, go to a river and they'd drink the river dry. I mean, some of the reports of the early explorers out there, these huge herds of buffalo. But they'd keep moving. When they'd move on, it'd come a little rain and the grass would come back and you'd have better grass than ever. So cattle can save. There's a good book called How Cows Save the Planet. And I've got it on my reading list. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to have to read it. But yeah, these people, they want us to eat bugs. They don't want us to eat beef. But this cell-cultured meat is disgusting. Nobody wants it. What's it going to do to healthcare cost? We know we've got the most unhealthy little kids we've ever had.
Yep.
If you go around these schools, obesity, we're the second fattest state in the nation behind Mississippi. It seems like we can't be number one in anything. But Mississippi is number one fattest state, and we're number two.
Good Lord.
And if you could figure it out, I wouldn't be surprised if we're number one or two in sugary soft drink consumption.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could cut out, well, we got a bill this year that to put whole milk back in the schools and dispensers, and we've got some funding in the budget for it, and Dairy Alliance is helping us with it, and enough schools have already done it. We know that when you put a milk dispenser where you stick a glass under it and get your cold milk, whole milk or chocolate milk,
yep,
consumption goes through the roof.
Yep.
See, Michelle said they had to have skim milk in the school. Well, nobody likes the skim milk. And they didn't like it in a little cardboard box with paraffin on it. Nobody likes that. But when you put it in the dispensers,
yep,
you buy 5-gallon bladders, and it's milk, whole milk in a 5-gallon bladder is cheaper than skim milk in the little carts. And consumption goes way up. Well, you get some animal fat in there. You know, all kinds of studies around the world says these kids can't absorb calcium unless it's in the presence of animal fat. You've got to have the whole milk. Trying to lose weight drinking skim milk is ridiculous. I mean, milk's not what makes people fat.
Right.
It's sugary.
Yep. And all those drinks also make it harder for your bones to absorb the calcium anyway. So.
Oh, well, the soft drinks, I read 50 years ago that soft drinks had so much phosphoric acid in it that leaks the calcium out of your bones.
Yep. And
that's the reason we have so many hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder replacements. Most of the people have these replacements for drank a lot of soft drinks,
yep,
a lot of phosphoric acid in them, and it pulled the calcium out. And, you know, if we could just get everybody to eat right and eat good food and stay away from fake meat and soft drinks, you know, these soft drinks got something in them called sodium benzoate. The only two that I know that don't would be full strength Pepsi and RC, but all the Coke products and even the Diet Pepsi, Diet RC, they have it. It's sodium benzoate. Well, they've outlawed it in Europe. Coca-Cola can't put it in their drinks in Europe. In Europe, they said it changes your DNA at the mitochondrial level.
Wow.
So why would we let Coca-Cola use something that's been banned in Europe because it changes your DNA? Why would we let all these little kids in this country drink? Are we stupid? Or
Wow.
What's the matter with us?
That's crazy. And so good to see that you got 2870. You guys have banned or introduced prohibits the importation, sale, and distribution of cell cultured food.
We'll not get that done. There's so many big boys fighting it. Farm Bureau's fighting it. The American Farm Bureau owns a lot of stock in Tyson Foods, and Tyson put $150 million in Memphis Meats, which is a fake meat company. And so it's going to be hard to fight that back. I mean, I'd love to just outlaw it. We don't know what that's going to do to our healthcare costs to get all these, if they ever get people eating. But the good news is people aren't buying it. They're not going for it much.
Good.
And some of these companies are struggling, and hopefully they'll just all go away.
Yeah. Real property, which is Senate Bill 2639, restricts certain foreign investments in land located within this state through the creation of two separate prohibitions. One that restricts a prohibited foreign party controlled business from acquiring property, and another that restricts prohibited foreign party from acquiring agricultural land located in this state. Now, I know the House version of this Jay Reedy has, and it made it through committee today. I think it's going to the full committee. So you got a pretty good chance for this in the Senate, you think?
Yeah, I think we do. We had it in committee today, and there was a couple of questions, and we rolled it till tomorrow. We're going to get, and I think we've answered the questions now. See, this bill, we passed the bill last year. We didn't get it right, and this bill is patterned exactly after Arkansas. Arkansas passed this bill, gives them 2 years for these bad actors to get rid of their land, and it's withstood the challenge. They've actually made people sell the land and move along. Why should we let people buy land in our country when we can't buy land in their country?
Absolutely, especially people like China, countries like China. Yeah.
North Korea and a lot of these Middle Eastern countries are pretty bad actors too, and we've got to let those in there. And so we need to be thinking about our children, our grandchildren, and protecting them. And we can do it. We've got time if we'll just do it.
Yeah.
But Arkansas got a good bill now. Iowa had a bill. They've had a bill since the 70s that didn't allow foreign ownership.
Wow.
So they were way ahead of the game. But Arkansas, it seemed like their bill was more what we needed now than the Iowa bill.
Right.
I had the Iowa 3 or 4 years ago, couldn't get it passed. As soon as got out, everybody said, "Well, it's a good bill. You need to bring it back." And I said, "Well, why didn't you hit me the first time?"
So speaking of foreign, I think one of the biggest dangers to our country is the invasion of our border. I mean, this is a Fed-led invasion of our border. It's just getting worse all the time. I don't know how many millions of more people are going to come across the border between now and the end of the year, and hopefully we'll have a different president. But I mean, we've got millions here already. In our state, our AG has joined several suits against the federal government over this, and I think the latest had to do with the parole issue. So while our state AG and our governor a lot of times, complain to the federal government about what the Biden administration, the Fed-led invasion, our state's not real good on illegal immigration. I mean, there was a bill 2 years ago that Senator Reeves had, and the House sponsor was Bill Freeman, a Democrat, which that should have been like a flashing red light right there. And this was the professional license bill that we ended up giving professional licenses to illegal aliens. And I don't understand how stuff like that passes in Tennessee.
I do. People voted for it. I voted for it. These kids, they go to college. We made them pay full out-of-state tuition, like $14,000 a year. Our kids going free. And these young kids, they're here. They're brought in here by their parents. They didn't come across the border. They're doctor kids. They're raised here. They speak better English than I do. And they've gone through this college. They've passed all the tests. And we need the nurses. We need all these people. and we won't give them a license. These are not the people we need to be punishing. It's the people, the drug dealers and the people from all over the world, China, the Middle East, coming here. Those are the ones we need to spend our time on, not the kids that have gone to college. We made them pay full out-of-state tuition, and they've done it, and they've studied hard, and they want to pay taxes. They want to be part of us, and to not let them do it. I've got kids, grandkids. I know how hard it is to get through school and pass these tests and do it, and I voted for it, and I'm proud of my vote.
But the DACA kids, first off, they're not all kids. Half of the DACA are people that overstayed their visa. But even the ones that didn't overstay their visa, okay, remember, the DACA really started under Obama. And a lot of those people coming across the border because Obama was encouraging them to come over here. Because remember, DACA stands for, Deferred Action Child Arrival. So remember when Obama was encouraging all these kids to come over. So not all of the DACA didn't necessarily, matter of fact, if you're DACA, two things. Number one, you had to be illegal to qualify to be DACA. And like I said, Deferred Action Child Arrivals, they came by themselves. This is not necessarily the ones that the parents brought over illegal. So I don't think we owe these kids anything. Because of the federal government forcing us to pay for their education K through 12, we're already paying for that. It just seems to me like instead of doing things in our state to make our state attractive to illegal aliens, even those willing to work, because it's still wrong to just come across our border. I think we should be doing more to make our state an unwelcoming place for illegal aliens.
Well, they're here. They're going to eat. They're
Right.
going to work and pay taxes, or they're going to steal and eat. The sooner you get them working and paying taxes, the better off we are. Now, I know lots of Mexicans. I know illegal Mexicans. I know some that are legal. And I've even learned a little Spanish myself. They say that fights Alzheimer's if you learn a foreign language when you get old. But they're here. They're going to eat. We need taxpayers. We need people doing it. We need these nurses. We need these people doing this. And that's a diversion. Trying to fight these kids that are trying to be Americans and trying to do things. We just got so much energy. There's just so much many hours in the day. Why do we fool with these good kids? These kids that want to get their license. They want to help in the hospitals. They want to do these things. When we've got these thugs coming across down here, those are the ones we need to be aimed at. And it's a federal issue. I don't know I don't have the answer. How do you make Washington? How are Republicans in Washington not doing something about this? Why don't they get some old Democrats out behind the barn up there and tell them, you're going to have to vote with us or you're going to get hurt? I mean, if we don't do something, there's a revolution coming.
Right.
But I don't have, they're not up hours in my day. I need to spend my time fighting a real problem and not worried about something like this.
Well,
these kids pay taxes. They make, what you got to remember, these average DACA kids are better Americans today than average Democrats.
Well, but that's a very low bar, though. I mean, that's a super low bar.
That is a low bar. I'd have to agree. You got me there.
But my point too is, okay, they're still illegal, and it's not just the DACA. Okay, one thing too, our state seems to think if they have a work authorization, that means that they actually came through some process. I guarantee you, there's a lot of people from the Biden invasion who have work authorizations. Work authorization doesn't change your status. Okay.
Listen, I really don't know where you come from. I don't like illegal aliens coming in here. Illegal is illegal. If they cannot obey a law, why can't I pick a law not to obey? But it's a federal issue. What in the world can the state actually do? I mean, about all this invasion, until we get another president, and Trump says that he's going to let the local law enforcement know who the real bad ones are.
Right.
But sure enough, they're in this country. The military-age young adults from China and all over the Middle. He says he's going to round them up and ship them back home, and he can do it. Eisenhower did it.
Oh, I'm all for that. I'm just saying, in the meantime, our state doesn't need to make them.
But you just got so much time and energy. What we need to be spending our time and energy on now is get Trump elected. And because if we don't get Trump elected, we can't stand 4 more years about it.
Oh, I agree with you there. I agree with you there.
Obama and Valerie Jarrett and Susan Rice, they're running the show.
Right.
Poor Biden, he don't know where he is. And it's elder abuse to put him up there and put him through, dope him up, and make him give a speech like he did tonight. I didn't watch it, but I heard about it.
Right.
But that's a form of elder abuse.
Yep. Well, we're just going to have to, I guess, agree to disagree on the illegal situation.
That's fine.
I think
if we agree on everything, one of us doing all the thinking.
Yeah, but I do think, I will say this, in my opinion, our state needs to make sure that they're not making, our state government needs to make sure that they're not making our state a place where illegals feel welcome. We should make them, in my opinion, feel very unwelcome.
We don't have, and there's illegals in every state. I mean, the scary thing is most of these military age people are going to New York and in Chicago, and I fear that they're going to all get together up there and we'll have a terrorist event and somebody will arm them all of a sudden. And we've got so many military age foreign. I'm not talking about Mexicans. I'm talking about from China and Europe and everywhere. Somebody arms all those guys. They're an army inside of you.
Oh yeah.
And we know, and those are the things we need to be worried about. Not the girl who passed the test and is working at the hospital as a nurse. We don't need to be worried about her. She's paying her taxes. She's gone to school, and one generation she'll be a great American. Her kids will be great Americans. And we need to be worried about these guys that are going to all get together. Somebody arm them. There'll be an event that like we've never seen before.
Oh, I'm sure there's already arms. I'm sure there's already a plan. I mean, they've had people, what they call OTMs, other than Mexicans, coming across the border for 20 years now. And I guarantee you, pick an enemy that we have in the world, I'm sure they have a force here ready to hit whenever they decide to do it. So
it all goes back to the globalists that we talked about earlier. The globalists can't take over the world until they destroy America. We're the fly in the ointment. And they say that the American South is the real fly in the ointment for the one worlders. We're just not going along with it. And we got to make sure we keep it that way.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate what you do. We'll disagree on that last one, but you do some good work, some very good work. I know you're good on the Second Amendment. I'm hoping your bill with I think it's Clay Doggett. I think Clay has the House version of the bill that would make it a violation of a civil right if a state official infringes on your Second Amendment. You'd be able to take action against them. So I do.
Yeah, we've had so many good Second Amendment bills. I can't keep up with all of them, but we're probably the most gun-friendly state in the nation. But I remember. Old boy that wrote Roots, Alex Haley.
Right.
Alex Haley.
Yeah.
I heard him say one time, he said, no matter, in East Tennessee, he said, no matter how humble a little cabin might be, whether it's up on the side of a mountain or down in a holler, he said they'll have two things. They'll have a good, high-quality musical instrument and a good, high-quality firearm.
Yep.
So we're pretty well armed in Tennessee.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Senator, I appreciate you coming on with us. Appreciate your time. And we'll have you back on some other time.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch our program. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell to stay informed on our upcoming shows. As a reminder, you can now listen to us on a podcast at Spreaker.com. You can find all the audio-only podcasts of your favorite episodes on our website, tninformer.com, or do a search for Tennessee Informer on Spreaker.com, where you can also download the Spreaker app for Android or Apple phones. We're also excited to announce the Tennessee Informer podcast are now available to listen to on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and several other podcast platforms. Also take a moment to check out and follow us on Facebook, tninformer.com. We'll be posting news and information about upcoming shows on there, as well as our website, tninformer.com, where you can also sign for the weekly newsletter. We're on Twitter now as well at twitter.com/tninformer. Share us with your friends. Let them know what's going on so they can stay up to date. Our guest next week will be Rick Revel, and our topic will be Hell on the Home Front during the Civil War. You'll want to join us. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.